Hey guys, Jesse here, your NBA Vibe Navigator. I'm joined by my co host and NBA analyst, Mickey Swish. Say hello, Mickey.
Hello, everybody.
This is Dishing and Swishing. We are off the blogs. This podcast is presented by your favorite data driven gambling model, Orb Analytics Limited. Find them at orbanalytics.substack.com. This will be a weekly podcast where we cover all things NBA, your go to for hot takes, sharp bets, and nothing but net insights with myself, the NBA Vibe Navigator, and Mickey Swish. With that being said, let me dish it to Mickey with what's coming on today's pod.
Hello, everybody. This is Mickey here. On today's episode, we run through a quick recap from last year's season and the NBA Finals. We talk about Olympic basketball and how triumphant we were, and our summer moves that we saw, our favorites and some bad ones. We take, most importantly, a look ahead into some of our favorite upcoming storylines from the 2024-2025 NBA season. Thank you, our fans, for listening. Here is the first episode of Dishing and Swishing. Let's get into it.
Podcast. We are live. I like the idea of just getting it started. I just want to say, gentlemen, today I woke up with like butterflies in my stomach. I had seen real players in NBA jerseys. I saw Jimmy Butler at media day, not in a costume.
Looking serious.
Kristaps Porzingis is already questionable. Like, we're back, boys. I think we should just kind of introduce ourselves and start ripping takes. What do you guys think?
Let's do it. Jesse, why don't you lead us off?
For everyone who has read the Orb, all seven of you, I am Jesse, your Vibe Navigator. I'm joined by my co-host Mickey Swish. We decided to take it off the blogs and move to a podcast. We think that the world needed just one more sports podcast. And we're starting off our preseason coverage for the NBA. Mickey, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great. NBA season's back. Media days are already in the books. Life is good. I'm looking forward to a good season. Let's get
We already
after it.
got we already got news to cover. We got like fresh news. We got fresh trades. For just some context, I think for the people who are listening to this is going to be a weekly podcast. As you are aware, I'm more of a gambling guy. I'm going to be hammering out picks once the season starts. Mickey's going to give you more journalistic analysis. He's going to get deep into the issues that matter, and then I'm going to give you the odds that matter in context for that. Do you think we should start with a little season recap, Mickey? What do you think?
I think we should. Obviously, last season was pretty important. A lot of interesting things happened. We have an
Yeah,
interesting finals championship that led into a wonderful season, off season that had the Olympics. So I think we should have a little bit recap session.
I feel obligated to tell our audience, and I didn't allude to this in my writing, but I am a Celtics fan, so I'd like to just like briefly touch on Banner 18, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I had no idea you were a Celtics fan. This is a complete surprise to me. This is a shocker if I've ever seen one. Please continue
Um,
to talk about your fandom here.
Thank you. And I'm going to try and keep this as impartial as I can. Banner 18, I don't know if you were also aware of this, Mickey, but the Celtics, they don't raise any banners other than championship banners. When you're at the TD Garden, there's no division banners, there's no conference banners, there's only NBA championship banners. And now we got 18 of them. I think it was an interesting season. I think if you ask the average person, I think the playoffs, if you ask the average non-Celtics fan, I don't know if the playoffs were that compelling. A lot of those series were kind of duds. Celtics kind of avoided some big heavy hitters in the playoffs.
Mhm.
But you know what? When you keep running it back with the same core and you keep being a top seed in the conference, eventually I think stuff's going to break your way and you should be rewarded for it. But Mickey, I'm curious, you as an impartial, what was your thoughts on the Celtics and their chances heading into this upcoming season?
I mean, I think you hit on something important. The fact that they have the talent that they have, but they didn't face, I don't want to say not much competition, but it wasn't a cakewalk, but it wasn't like they had too much of a gauntlet to get through to get to where they needed to go. So they have all this talent, and going into the last season, they were championship or bust, and they delivered. And I kind of feel like by default, they have that same expectation going into this upcoming season. They were there multiple seasons in a row, getting there, but not getting his work where they needed to be. Close, but no cigar. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Last year they did it with the core that they have, with the talent that they have. Obviously, last year counts, but I kind of want to see him do it again for your sake, for Boston's sake. I'm not a Boston fan myself, but for the team's sake, for this legacy's sake, I kind of need to see them do this more than once. All the hype, all the praise, all the talent. Impressive season last year for sure. They were kind of, um, again, predicted to win it all over the course of the regular season. I think everybody had a feeling maybe midway through is kind of like, at this point, it's not who's going to win, it's more so Boston's to lose. And I feel like that in due time we'll probably more or less have the same feeling in this upcoming season, unless something strange happens, because the roster doesn't look too much different.
I do like having an off season when you don't have to make any moves. Other than no shade to Lonnie Walker, I think he might be able to sneak in some minutes there. I'd say like hopefully he can take some Peyton Pritchard minutes, and he can
But you
just
just don't
go
want
back to.
any random half court shots at the buzzers anymore. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, he can just do that, is what I'm saying, Mickey. Is he can just come in at the end of quarters and at the end of halves for the half court shot. However, he's 5'8", and I don't want him on
Sure.
the floor that much.
Fair enough.
And the problem with having the best starting five in the league is, you can't pay that many guys on the bench. So we're going to need him to kind of step up a little bit. I think in terms of the pressure on them, I as a Celtics fan, and then I don't want to spend too much time on the Celtics. I will just say this, and this will kind of pivot it. This will transition into our offseason and Olympic conversation.
Sure.
It's not so often that you come off a title and you enter in the next season and your two best players are already pissed off in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, for similar but different reasons. One of them was left off the Olympic team entirely. We had that whole drama called
Mm-hmm.
Grant Hill a conspiracy theorist because for whatever reason, Jaylen Brown doesn't like Nike. And for some reason, people thought that was the reason he was left off the team, other than the fact that, there was a lot of all-time greats on that roster. And Jason Tatum showed up fresh off a title and got 2 DMPs, I think, during the tournament. So I think there's a lot of noise, and I think a lot of people feel similarly to you right now, Mickey, that we want to see it. We want to see them do it again based off how the last playoffs went and how this offseason went. So I don't disagree with you. But as
Sure.
a Celtics fan, coming off 64 wins, I feel pretty good. I am worried about the Porzingis piece, though. I will say that.
Which is reasonable. I mean, we saw how beneficial he was in the playoffs when he was able to play. So having a talent like that on your bench, not in street clothes, is not ideal. You want to have that guy healthy, and I think he's going to be an important piece to getting back to the promised land this upcoming season. That's for damn sure.
He's often in street clothes thing, though. That's the other piece is I
You
don't
got to fix that. You got to fix
it,
that.
I don't know what I'm gonna do to fix it. It's also our solution is 45
Send
year old Al
positive vibes
Horford.
his way, Mr. Navigator. That's what you need to do.
I am your
Positive
vibe
vibes.
navigator. That is fair. That is fair. And 45-year-old Al Horford, I am also concerned about him being like our only big man.
You know what? Today, when I was like going through the rosters of each team to make sure that I was like kind of on pace with trades and making sure I hadn't really forgotten about anything like major, obviously saw Al Horford on the Celtics, and I like made sure that this was up to date, this was current, and I was completely aware that he decided to not retire. And I love the fact that he didn't. The fact that he wanted to repeat, kind of do what he did when he was with the Gators back in the day, try to go for back to back. I love it. I've been a fan of Al Horford regardless of the team that he's been on. I think he's a very valuable player, and I think he's super important to that Boston Celtics success. And I love the fact that he's coming back regardless of his age. So good for him, genuinely.
I agree. I love that man. I'm worried about his knees, but we'll see.
Reasonable.
I think let's that kind of naturally transitions into the Olympics. Let's talk about it for a second again. I don't want We got a lot to cover, Mickey. This is our
Sure.
first pod. We got a lot to unpack here. But I feel like it would be necessary for us to talk about the Olympics. And for me, as itchy as I've been getting for basketball, I've been betting on baseball, Mickey. It's been disgusting. I'm ready. I'm ready for some hoops. I got a 4-leg baseball parlay today, so I
Well, I
don't
got
even know
good
what's
news.
going on.
Hoops ain't that far away. You can bet on baseball, and it's a beautiful time to bet on baseball. Mr. October's in the building, but basketball is here. Hoops is
We're
here.
close. We're close. I'd say this about the Olympics. I'm curious, Mickey, what you think. My favorite part about the Olympics, other than it just filled the sports kind of vacuum for the summer, was I think when you think about the last 10 to 15 years of basketball, with LeBron, it's more, but I think there's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's three guys that kind of define this time period. I think it's LeBron, I think it's Durant, I think it's Steph. I think those are the first. I think
Mm-hmm.
you probably go LeBron one, Steph two, KD three, which is ironic because when KD played with Steph, he was the Finals MVP, but still doesn't get enough credit for it. But seeing those dudes in like high stakes games again, especially with LeBron, who we haven't seen in high stakes games in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Even Steph, he's been dancing with the play in. Kevin Durant's probably had the weirdest career of any superstar. Seeing them in like real high stakes games, play off each other, and show that like they're still the top dogs on a team that has all the best players in the world on it. Was I've never felt more patriotic. I've never really rooted for
Yeah,
Durant, um, but it was fun. It was fun. I'm curious what your thoughts were watching it.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's really important to recognize that those three players were involved in the first place. I feel like, you know, after the Redeem team and just overall, I feel like the interest and the validity of USA international basketball has kind of waned over the years. The When you look at the rosters in the past few Olympic Games, not that there's any scrubs. I'm not trying to be Stephen A. Smith here and call anybody a scrub in the Team USA,
Feel
but
free, man.
you know, not having superstars like LeBron all the time, not having Steph all the time. How many times has Steph been to the Olympics? I mean, the fact that he hasn't been there as a regular participant for the past several years or several Olympics is outrageous. Kevin Durant's been the only guy that's been kind of through and through over every course of every 4 years. So I feel like kind of reclaiming the fact that, hey, everywhere else in the world is kind of catching up to us, right? A lot of players in the NBA that are in the superstar tier or close to it are not from the United States. So this idea of, hey, USA, Team USA is not as dominant as they once were, I understand the argument, but I feel like having these superstars and these guys that are not in their prime, but they still absolutely can dominate any game when they need to, when they want to. Guys like LeBron, guys like KD, guys like Steph. I feel like it's super important to kind of reassert that dominance. Like, hey, Team USA is still Team USA, and you guys are doing great, but don't forget that this is Team USA basketball. And when we want to, when we send our guys, our best guys, not just any guys, our best guys, we are going to win. Things got hairy, things got close a couple times, but Team USA basketball proved that Team USA basketball is still Team USA basketball.
Yes, yes. Things did get hairy, and it's and I think that's why it was so fun. Is those last two games, you know, you could argue we should have lost that Serbia game.
Mm-hmm.
Down big in the second half. I believe that was one of the games Tatum did not play because he forgot how to shoot jump shots inexplicably. I'm not really sure exactly what is going on there. Hopefully he fixed it. But yeah, I think that's the other piece where like the world is caught up, and that Serbia game they didn't have the best player on the floor, which is new
Sure,
for Team
sure.
USA. Jokic was the best player on the floor. They obviously had the depth and the athleticism, but Serbia was shooting the lights out. And then that France game, you're in Paris against France, against the future of the NBA,
Yep, yep.
and they were smart enough to bench Rudy Gobert, but you're still, you're playing against Wembanyama in his hometown, um,
Mm-hmm. High
and
stakes.
high stakes. And Steph, Steph didn't show up to the last two games, but that's exactly when they needed him. So I think it was a ton of fun. And I'm curious to see what this means for a lot of those guys because I was really impressed with Devin Booker
Mm-hmm.
on that team. I think Devin Booker was what Tatum should have been on this team, is being able to fit a role, play defense, facilitate, hit open shots, not dominate the ball. He really impressed me, and I'm excited to kind of see him moving forward because he seems to have matured significantly.
Yeah, I agree. I think Devin Booker specifically played a really interesting role where, I mean, think about it. Think about all the success that Booker's had in the NBA, maybe aside being directly next to a guy like Kevin Durant. He has always been like the one of the, if not the single greatest player on every court that he's ever been on for how many years now? Maybe even before, obviously being before a professional NBA player. So being able to quietly, with nuance, kind of take the role that he did on Team USA, just kind of where we need him, pick and choose particular plays, particular spots, particular assignments. And I think that really proved that he doesn't need to be the center of attention, and he kind of realized that it's not my time to be the center of attention on this stage yet, and I'll continue to have my role on the Suns and continue to be Devin Booker when I need to be, but kind of deferring and being okay with not being the number one all the time or the number two to Kevin Durant all the time. Very interesting to watch that, and I think mature. What you said, mature. I feel like that's a really very fitting word to watch how Devin Booker played over the course of the Olympic Games for sure.
Yeah, mature and demure. I would say very demure
Very
Olympics for him.
demure. Sure.
Understated, like you said. I think it was very impressive. And like I said, I'm very excited to see kind of how he parlays that into the NBA season. Speaking of parlays, um, I think we should talk about some NBA topics, some NBA offseason moves. I can give some color into kind of what some of these odds look like. I'm just gonna say this also. I will be giving out picks. I will not be giving out official picks in this podcast. It is
Mm-hmm.
October 1st. Get off my back. I will do
Early
that
days.
when we get closer to the season. I'll give out some picks. I'm gonna do weekly picks. I don't know how many weekly picks I'm gonna do. It's gonna be a long season for now. But I'm gonna give you some odds as we talk. I'll say, hey, I like this, I like that. But I will make it very clear when my picks are official picks, and we're gonna be keeping track of them. Hopefully, just how well I'm doing.
We're still in
Um,
layup lines. You got time. We're still in layup
yeah,
lines.
yeah. We're warming up. I'm still getting. I just learned. I just remember that DeMar DeRozan was on the Kings today.
Yeah.
We're getting warmed up.
Yeah.
Um, Mickey, what was your favorite offseason move?
I think I cannot believe that you teed me up for this. I would say arguably my favorite move is DeMar DeRozan to the Kings.
Mm,
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think DeMar DeRozan to the Kings is an absolutely incredible move. Now, you were so kind to let everybody know where your fandom lies, and I would be remiss to not
please.
say where my fandom lies. I am a fan of the Chicago Bulls, so as a Bulls fan, watching DeMar DeRozan leave Chicago is devastating, and I hated every second of it. Being an objective NBA fan, I think him going to the Kings is an incredible move for Sacramento. I really like that move on behalf of the Kings. I think the young talent that they have there, all of these young stars at the guard position, plus a guy like Sabonis, I think everybody has nothing but superior benefits coming their way from being able to play with and learn from a savvy star veteran like a guy in DeMar DeRozan. Uh, Being able, if I'm De'Aaron Fox and I know that I get to play alongside Malik Monk, I know now from moving forward this season at minimum, I'm playing alongside DeMar DeRozan. Are you kidding me? They already had success last year. Obviously, they didn't go as far as they wanted to. They fell at the hands of the Golden State Warriors going into the playoffs. But imagining they have all of that, plus more success with the addition of DeMar DeRozan, I see nothing but ups. From a Bulls fan, I hate it. I hate it. Watching DeMar and the Kings is going to make me so pissed. And not seeing him in the United Center this season and carrying us in the fourth quarter because he is the king of fourth quarters in modern NBA basketball is going to be super upsetting when I hate it. But Mickey Swish is an objective NBA fan, and as an objective NBA fan, him to the Kings is probably my favorite offseason move of this NBA season.
Yeah, yeah. I agree, especially with the crunch time stuff. And like De'Aaron Fox in his own right is a pretty good crunch time player. They're gonna have to figure out the dynamic of like because they both like the ball in their hands.
Sure.
I think De'Aaron Fox is enough of a point guard that he'll be willing to kind of defer to DeMar when it's like go get a bucket time. Um,
Absolutely.
I like it. I still like the Kings. I like Sabonis. It's the West is just deep, man. So I don't know what the ceiling is. Their over under for wins is 46 and a half. They won 46 last year. Seems about right. Especially when you think, I think there's gonna be a couple teams that I think are gonna be better.
Mm-hmm.
I was very intrigued by it though. I think he's the perfect piece for him because I just think he's an upgrade from the Harrison Barnes position.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think he can get you steady buckets. Because I think there would be times. I think the Kings' biggest issue a lot of times is Sabonis on defense, but I think a lot of times they were a little too reliant on De'Aaron Fox down the stretch to
I
kind of
agree.
bail them out of games. And I think DeRozan can help that a lot. The only problem again is I just think the West is really tough. So
Yeah.
I don't like. What does it mean? Is it like they win a playoff series? Like, would you go as far as to say I know? So it's your favorite move. Is this a team where you're thinking they could be a top 4 seed? and make a a deep run of the playoffs, or what do you think about their prospects?
Um, I don't want to put myself in a box here,
I'm
knowing
trying to
that it
box you
is.
in. I'm trying to
I
box
know.
you
Hey, you and I are both in layup lines here in terms of making official predictions and picks for the season. But putting a gun to my head off the cuff here, I do genuinely think that the Kings have a chance to be a maybe not a deep playoff contender, but I would not be surprised at all if they win a playoff series, maybe two. I really that doesn't surprise me, knowing how close they were last year, and how close, not just physically how close they were to advancing in the playoffs. The games in towards the end of the season relative to the Warriors when they were facing them, those games were good games. I really enjoyed watching those games. Now, part of those games were the Kings' success, but also the Warriors kind of unraveling. Kind of goes both ways. But so that's something that's fair to consider. But hey, I genuinely think that the Kings can secure like a mid seed and definitely advance. Looking forward to seeing how
in.
that plays.
Yeah, I can see it. I think they're frisky. I like them. Would I be shocked if they were a play-in team? No, but I think they'll be out of it. I think they'll be that 5-6 spot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this. I'm gonna say this. This isn't my favorite move, but we didn't talk about the Towns trade. I feel like we should probably touch on that, given we're in the offseason section. This is an offseason move.
Yep.
Um, so for those of you who don't know, for those of you who don't follow Shams, now that Woj is retired, RIP. Enjoy St. Bonaventure's, Woj. You did a great thing. You will be missed. Um, Towns to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Randall and DiVincenzo and a pick, I think, to the
Yes.
Timberwolves by way of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Who won the trade?
I think the Wolves won the trade. I think the Wolves won the trade because and this will come out over the course of the season. I'm not a big fan of Karl Anthony Towns. I don't like his style. I'm not going to say I'm a Cat hater, but I'm not a fan of Karl Anthony Towns. So when you have a guy like Cat on your team, and we saw the ceiling of how he's been performing over the past handful of years in Minnesota, and by all means, he deserves the praise that he gets. He's a fine player, no doubt about it. But he's there sometimes you need him, and when you need him most, he's not. And all the stuff that he can do on the court. It's admirable, but you need more from a guy like that. You just need more. So they got pretty far last year with him, and I think that the combination between him and Gobert is wild. I always thought that was wild from the beginning. So I like the fact that they have a little bit of a change in their roster, and I feel like I think DiVincenzo is going to be just a spark plug off the bench, and I feel like a lot of their offensive power has just been a little bit too reliant on Anthony Edwards. So I feel like though the blossoming superstar that he is, he's going to get his. He's going to be as dominant as ever this year. But I feel like you can't just rely on someone like that at all times. Now, I'm not saying DiVincenzo is anything like that, but he proved multiple times over the course of the playoffs and towards the end of the season before the playoffs that he can be relied on when you need him. And I think that's pretty valuable towards him as an individual and towards the Wolves as a whole. Now, I wanted to see the Nova Knicks. I'm not a Knicks fan. I wanted to see the Nova Knicks, and I feel like everybody was excited to see the Nova Knicks because DiVincenzo is a dog, and him in New York with all of his friends all being dogs would have been a beautiful thing to watch. So, from a fan perspective, kind of wish I would have had a chance to see that, as I think we all do. But I don't think that Cat is cut out for New York. I just don't think that he's the personality to be fit in a place like New York. I don't think his play style fits that team very well. I just don't know. In a vacuum, you have a talented guy like Cat, but him in what it means to be a New York Knick in that media, part of that team, with that culture, I am not sold that that's going to be a success. Certainly not yet. I'd have to see it to believe it. So based off of that, I don't know if the Knicks won the trade. They had something there. They were successful. They added to it with Mikal Bridges, and they said, "Get out of here, DiVincenzo, who we relied on. Bring in Cat." I think he's going to get torn to pieces.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not just New York, Mickey. It's Tibbs.
Oh
It's
yeah,
I can't think of a worse. I mean, he's coached him before, and it didn't
sure.
go well, and he hated him. So for those of you who aren't aware, Tom Thibodeau, Cat is not his kind of player. In all offense, kind of he settles for outside shots. He makes dumb
Yep.
decisions. He makes stupid
Yep.
fouls. Very talented. Um, I too, and we're gonna get in arguments in this pod. This is not gonna be one of those times. I too, I am a Cat hater. I hate that man.
Yep.
I don't hate that man now that I have a public platform, I hate that basketball player. That's what I'll say.
You know
I'm
what?
sure
I'm
he's a
going to change that.
very
I'm going to agree with you. I hate that basketball player. I hate his style. I hate watching that guy play. I'll join you on that team 100%. Let's do it. We're can't hate this,
yeah,
brother. We're can't hate
yeah,
it.
yeah. We can plant the flag on that right now. Um, I'm sure he's a very nice man. I don't
Sure.
care. I think it's like it's a very Knicks move, like a historically Knicks move for them to they get seduced by names a lot. Like I just think they were doing so good. Like I almost look at the Knicks like a baby brother to a Celtics fan. Like
Mm.
they're trying to be a functional franchise and like they were doing the thing. Like they were making frugal moves. Like they paid Jalen Brunson. He turned out way better than they thought. Like they
Hmm.
got all these really good role players. They weren't getting seduced by these crazy stars. And I kind of would have liked to have seen them play it out with Randall for a little bit longer just to see. I was making running jokes that like I couldn't wait for the Knicks fans to remember that they hated Randall when he came back because I was curious just to see how it fit.
Yeah.
But when the answer is cat, like I get it, it makes sense on paper. Because what do the Knicks need? They needed a center because Mitchell Robinson is made of paper mache, and their backup is Jericho Sims and Precious Achua. Like
Hmm.
they needed a big and they needed some spacing around Brunson, and I guess they were worried about the Randall thing too. I just think when you look at Cat, and this is where I'll say I respect the Knicks fans, and I'll try to be as non-condescending as I can.
Okay.
They want to be functional so bad, and they care so much. Like New York is a basketball town. They just never had the team. They don't want to root for the Yankees. Like they want to be Knicks. They want the Knicks to be good.
Hmm.
And they were right there. And then same old Knicks getting seduced by a name of a dude who's kind of overrated, kind of fits, kind of sexy, kind of like Carmelo, kind of like Stephon Marbury. Like it's very similar. It reminds me of that.
Hmm.
And I think I agree with you that he's going to get torn up by the New York media the second that it's day to day with Cat. I will give Knicks fans some credit in that they're a very educated fan base, and like people that I've talked to who are Knicks fan, they know Cat's soft. I think like the average fan base who's like you talk to the Trailblazers, they get Karl Anthony Towns, they're like, oh, look at his stats. He's like 20 and 10 and hits 5 threes. That's awesome. Knicks
Nah, it's
fans
deeper.
know
It's
the
deeper.
Karl Anthony they know the Karl Anthony Towns experience that they're going to get. They're just hoping that like Tibbs can break him. I think is or that he'll defer to Brunson, which like he may.
Hmm.
So I think I agree with you. I think on the flip side of that, in that I kind of like the prospect of Randall and Edwards. I think Randall is he in New York at least he became kind of a ball stopper, but I think when he was I don't know if you remember him on the Pelicans, he was a point forward. Like that's kind of where he kind of made a name for himself to warrant that big contract when he became an all-star was he was playing that point forward role and facilitating, not just taking stupid step back threes that the Knicks
Hmm.
fans started to hate. So I think him and Edwards can work. I think I agree with you. He's a dog. I think Dante DiVincenzo is like as good a 3-and-D guy as you can get at the guard position.
Yep.
Um, and I think kind of getting addition by subtraction as well, just getting Cat out of there. I'm just tired of watching him. Like I don't know how you root. Like it's like watching those Timberwolves games. They like a lot of times they won in spite of him. Like he would have four
Yeah.
fouls in the third quarter and then like have another foul at half court for no reason. Like he just makes mind-boggling decisions sometimes. So I'm excited for Madison Square Garden to see that in person on a regular basis. But I think I agree with you. I'd lean Minnesota. The only thing is like Randall's owed money. So is it just like he's an expiring contract, then he's a trade piece, and then you just kind of rebuild around Ant? That probably seems like the best strategy.
Gotta be.
So we'll see. But in the short term, I think I like that. I think New York Knicks fans are going to talk themselves into it. But I think in the playoffs, I'm not scared of that guy. Is what I'd say.
Yep, I agree with you 100% on that. Nor I don't understand why anybody would be. We got to see it to believe it.
100%. 100%. Okay. My favorite offseason move. I'm gonna say this, and
Let's hear it.
this isn't gonna win. It's not gonna win anybody a title, but just my favorite. Chris Paul to the Spurs.
Stop it.
I just listen. Hear me out. Hear me out. Listen. And
Ah,
I have another
okay.
topic. I have another topic later. We're going to talk about Wemby, and we can maybe talk about a little bit here. But I just love this. Like I don't know how many games the Spurs are going to win. Probably not a lot. I don't know how much Chris Paul is even going to play, but
Mm-hmm.
this is the exact kind of move that like Joel Embiid did not get. Joel Embiid sat on disgusting teams surrounded by players that were terrible because the organization wanted to lose. And the Spurs are going the exact opposite route. They're not like they're still, they're stealth tanking still. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not like trying to be good, but getting him a guy like Chris Paul. Chris Paul made DeAndre Ayton look good.
It's a fair point.
Like, I think having a dude like that, like a serious veteran, a dude who's like been around everywhere, has won, and every he's improved every team he's gone to, is what I'd say. And he's improved every big man that's ever played with him. And now he's about to play with possibly the greatest big man prospect we've ever seen since like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I'm just personally very excited to see it. It may not bear fruit this season, but just personal favorite. I'm very excited to see what comes of this.
In terms of strict development for Wemby, I think I agree with you. Like having someone as a savant as Chris Paul, who I've always thought is one of the, if not the greatest point guard of this generation, just in terms of pure uh, definition textbook point guard abilities. Having someone like that on your team, especially as a young player like Wembanyama, who has so much to learn, but already has demonstrated so much talent and so much skill, I feel like from that perspective, he probably will learn so much from such a talented veteran from a guy like Chris Paul. So from that perspective, I absolutely agree with you. From in the wins and loss column, which I mean, you and I'm not to repeat what you said, but I don't know how many wins it's going to translate to. I really don't. I think Chris Paul is. I mean, obviously, evidently, this is not news to anybody. He's not the Chris Paul of old, and he's been bouncing around a decent amount in recent years. So he doesn't have what he used to have, but just the brain of him himself being with a guy like Wembanyama may not translate to wins and losses on the court just yet, but it'll be super beneficial for Wemby. And not that this is a ring chase move from Chris Paul, but this is something on the legacy move from Chris Paul, which I'm looking forward to see what it is. Help develop this guy into a star. Maybe this is a couple year plan where they get someone else. I don't know, but from I didn't really think of this on my list. I wrote a few down, and of course this came across my radar. But I was like, this is interesting, but I don't know if this is my favorite. This is not interesting enough because I thought in the prospect of how will this actually impact the team in the wins loss column. But from a developmental standpoint, this might be one of the best moves we've seen in a bit.
Listen, when you're coming off an NBA title, you start looking into the bottom tier teams. Like, it's I didn't, I'm like, wins are fun. It's cool. My team didn't do anything. I'm like, what's an interesting move. I think in terms of the wins and losses, I think I agree. Spurs won 22 games last year. Care to guess? You want to guess what their over under is set at this year?
Would you say the number was from last year? 22.
22 last year.
31.
36 and a half.
Wow.
It's high. There's a 14 and a half game jump. So I guess they're thinking, did they make another move that I'm forgetting? So they got Chris Paul, Wemby's better. I think that's all they did. Yeah, I'm leaning under on that. I think I might.
Sure. Yeah.
I think people really like Wemby, so maybe they're just thinking that jump. And you know what? I don't hate it. If you're just like Wemby's gonna be a top 5 player in the NBA this year, go ahead. I lean under on that. I'll probably stay away from that just because rookies are weird. Mickey, whose turn is it? I just did spread. I'll Mickey, it's you. What's your next offseason move?
I mean, I still have. Are we still in the favorites, or are we going into the bad moves? Let me ask you that.
Where we at on time? Let's do bad moves, and then we can kind of keep it pushing.
I got a bad move that I'd like to.
Bad move or lack of moves, I think. Yeah.
Oh, great way to frame it. An actual bad move. I think this is a bad move.
Okay.
Bad move. Atlanta Hawks. DeJounte Murray leaving the Hawks and going all in on Trae Young. I'm not a hater of Trae Young, but I'm not a believer in Trae Young. I've watched him play for some time now, and I don't think that he can be the focal point, the centerpiece of a team that really aspires to be genuinely successful and have a genuine playoff run. I do not believe it's possible with him. I think he's super talented, but not in the right ways, and I don't think that he can be the number one without having a significant help. Now, I don't think DeJounte Murray and Trae Young are a pairing that could go to the moon. I don't think that's a finals team in and of itself. But to me, the message there, instead of adding to what they have with two stars in their own right, obviously DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, I wouldn't say are on the same level, but man, can he score! What a freak athlete he is, and what a dynamic tool he is in many different ways. So instead of adding to something like that and saying, you know what, we don't think that these two or this type of play style can work well enough with Trey, and we're going to make him the focal point with shooters and big men, as opposed to having another premier guard star alongside Trey Young. I think that to me is a mistake. I don't think Trey can be. I don't think he's good enough to have that type of responsibility. And I think having that type of counterpart in DeJounte Murray or someone akin to him, or DeJounte Murray and someone else, ideally, I think that would be the move. You keep Trey, you keep Murray, and you actually add someone else to facilitate that guard play. Because I don't think those two can do it on their own. So to me, I'm not a fan of the move because I don't think that's going to bear any fruit. Um, so I'm not rooting as a Hawks fan or against the Hawks here, but I just don't. I don't see that being super beneficial for them this upcoming season. I'm open to being wrong. They have one of the best shooters in the league on their team. So if they produce the offense by like addition by subtraction with Murray, Godspeed. But I feel like they made an interesting move going all in on the guy, which they've done before, and we've seen that it hasn't worked. And they added Murray, and then they got rid of him, and they're like, let's try this again with Trae Young. So I'm not a fan of that move. I don't think that's a good one.
Yeah, I think the Hawks are kind of stuck with Murray, or sorry, they're stuck with Trey. I don't think there was a huge market for him either. Um, I don't. I didn't really love him and Murray though either. I didn't love the pair. So the only thing is like I see what you're saying because they're kind of stuck regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just don't think Murray was the answer long term, and I think he was the dude with more trade value. To be honest, like at the considering Trey's contract, Trey is he's a guy I kind of wanted to see potentially go to the Spurs because I think he could have used a better or a change of scenery and play with somebody like Wemby under
Yeah,
Popovich.
that's totally valid.
I think he's kind of holding the Hawks hostage right now. And I don't think they have a ton of outs. Like they're the Atlanta Hawks. So like when you got a guy, they're still recovering from not taking Luca. So
Yes,
like they
for
could have
sure.
had Luca and they chose Trey. And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
We see, one of them has been to the conference finals twice and the finals. So
Mm-hmm.
like, and the other dude, I guess Trey did make a conference finals, didn't he? That was the infamous Ben Simmons year.
I think you might be right, but I mean,
The
how much the fact that we can't even fully place yes or no on that, I think is pretty telling enough.
Yeah, yeah. I think it
I
hasn't
agree with
been the
you that
best.
I think this idea of holding the Hawks hostage, I agree, and I'm not. I don't. I think I agree with you that the trade, or excuse me, the pairing between Murray and Trey Young was not super successful or beneficial anyway. But the way that I think of it is whether or not that was the move. I'm more interested in the hey, let's triple down again on Trey Young. We've done this. We've seen how this goes. Uh, we don't need to add anything to this. Let's just see again. Let's run it back for like the fourth time, where Trey Young is the pivotal, primary focal point of this team. I just don't see how beneficial that can be, regardless if Dejounte Murray was the answer or not. The fact that they didn't let him go or got rid of him and then replace him with something that's akin to him or something like him, that to me says all I need to know. We trust Trey. We're going to ride with Trey, and I think that's a mistake.
You're not a Zachary Risache believer?
Not yet. Not yet. But do I believe in the name? Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I think the last one I think we should touch on. Well, I'll say this for the sake of time because I also do want to touch on some stuff like looking ahead. But I think this is valuable stuff worth talking about to give context going forward. I think bad move, maybe not bad move, but just move I didn't love.
Mm-hmm.
Klay Thompson to the Mavs.
Really?
Eh, eh. I think he's kind of washed. Like I don't. I'm sniffing around the vibes around Klay, and I don't love him. Like I think I Clay's about to learn about life without Steph Curry,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to be an interesting life that he leads. I think he's going to be pretty thankful for his time in the Bay Area going forward. I think he's an entirely different player. He's in a foreign environment. He doesn't have that equity that he had in Golden State. He had the same coach that he won all those championships with. He
Mm-hmm.
had the two second and third best players, or first and third best player, however you want to rank them, that trusted him and would feed him the rock. He better shoot like 42% from three because he's not going to be guarding anybody. So, like, and he's not going to be doing anything else. And they're paying him like 15, 16 million. Ends up getting less than what he like was demanding from the Warriors. I'm kind of he could have just ridden off into the sunset in Golden State, like Steph's about to do, Like, and I get you want, I think he kind of felt disrespected, um, but I at the same time I think the Warriors are being realistic. If they had to get rid of one, he clearly has slipped the most.
Mm-hmm.
And like, would you rather have Klay Thompson or KCP?
Look, you're not going to believe this, and I can't show you this. But the way I'm going to answer this question is on my favorite moves list, which I have not said yet. I have Clay to Dallas in my favorite moves list.
Oh,
Believe it or not. So the exact reasons why I think you didn't say you hated it, but you didn't necessarily love
I
this
didn't
move.
love it. I didn't
Didn't
love
love
it.
it, which I respect. But I feel like for the reasons that you didn't love it is kind of why I am a fan of it, actually. I love the
Okay.
fact that his role is diminished. And I feel like that's exactly what he needs. I feel like part of it is he just needs to change the scenery. I feel like part of it is ego driven. Part of it to me thinks I need to prove that I can be successful without Steph. I can do somewhat even remotely close to the success that I have as an individual without having a guy like Draymond on our team, without having the coach of Steve Kerr, without having the superstardom of Steph Curry, without being in the system that is the Golden State Warriors. So I think part of this is Clay simply just wanting to prove I can do this on my own. I understand that Steph is Steph and I'm not Steph, but I feel like this praise to Steph comes as a double-edged sword, as almost a slight to Clay, to me. So I think that he really wants to prove that he can do something on his own. Now, I think that this diminished role is a huge positive for him because he is washed. But the fact that he used to be this like incredible 3-and-D guy that everybody knew was one of the best 3-point shooters, maybe number two, maybe number three in the NBA, but also maybe number one, two, or three defensive guard in the NBA. It's a huge, huge responsibility, and did that very highly for a decent amount of years. So not having to have that double role anymore, I think, is a huge, huge, huge thing for him. And from the Dallas Mavericks perspective, hey, brother, we have incredible playmakers in Kyrie and Luka. We need you to do one thing and one thing only: run around, get open, and shoot threes. That's it. We don't need you to do anything fancy. We don't need any of that nonsense. Just shoot the damn 3-pointer. So guess what? From the Dallas Mavericks perspective, that fits their offense last year because they needed a little bit more of that. And from Clay's perspective as a player, that's all he wants to do. Stand around, shoot. Don't be the focal point of an offense. Don't be the number two focal point of an offense relative to Steph as number one. Just get open, be the man in the wing. Don't exude your energy on defense like you used to in the past. Just shoot. I think this is a win for both parties. At least on paper, I'm really interested in seeing how this goes.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And I think I'm curious to see where he's at. Over under for the Mavericks 49.5. They won 50 games last
Over,
season, so it's about where
over,
you like the over?
over, 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 oh,
Okay.
double over.
We need to get some Mickey Swish picks. That's what we need. It can't just be the vibe navigator. So the over on that. I think because they had the slow start last season too. They really grounded into shape that second half of the season after the Gafford and PJ Washington move.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I'm a Clay defender in terms of his time in his prime when they were winning titles. That dude was the best 3-and-D guy in the league, one of the best defensive perimeter guys in the league, and was like a big time shot maker in high stakes playoff situations. And they don't win all of those titles without Clay, 100%. Then he tore his ACL, and then he tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what exact if he's comfortable also, because part of the reason he left Golden State was because of they were diminishing his role. I'm curious to see how he embraces it. Maybe he's more willing to embrace it with a Luka and a Kyrie kind of thing. Um, in a place where it's not like he built it, right? Like Klay Thompson is getting a statue at the Chase Center. Like it's a little different when you're walking into that building versus when you're walking into the Mavericks. So I don't hate it. I'm staying away. I think Luka's amazing. I still like the Mavs. I just don't know. I don't know how much of a contributor Clay is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
In a stacked West too. With that stacked West, I think the last move that we probably should touch on is that Thunder team down in Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
who's looking pretty stacked. And you as a Bulls fan, you know, Caruso's gone. You got Giddy in the deal, so you
Yeah.
know that's something. But I
Sure.
think that was one. You know, that's one of the first moves of the offseason. I think that's a great move for them. They needed size around Chet, and some more perimeter defending with
Mm-hmm.
Caruso. Like Caruso and Dort as your perimeter defenders is disgusting. Along with even SGA is a pretty good defender.
They're going to be a
Um,
nightmare for teams.
yes. Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts for the Thunder's prospects? I'll pull up some of their odds.
Sure. Kind of akin to what I had said previously about DeMar to the Kings. As a Bulls fan, my two favorite players on this current Bulls team, and arguably top five favorite Bulls of all time, both DeMar and Caruso. I have both of their jerseys in my closet. Losing both of them in the span of such a short amount of time, my heart has been on the floor. To this day, I'm in shambles. So losing Caruso, man, just really hard. I really enjoy the way he plays. I really like watching him play. But super, super, super beneficial for the Thunder. Like they're, as you had said regarding him and Dort as being two like premier guys that happen to be on the same team, and they're both going to be focused on their one and two probably guard offensive weapons that they're facing against. They're going to be a nightmare. I've watched Caruso night in and night out for a decent time now since he's been on the Bulls, and he is an absolute nightmare when he needs to be. And it is super beneficial to have a guy like him on your team. They don't necessarily need the offensive talent that he brings, which he will have. He will hit open shots when they need him to. He'll obviously, I mean, his two primary characteristics are the hustle and the defensive side of things, which he does exceptionally well. One of the best, if not the best, in the league. So bringing that aspect to a team that has the offensive prowess and a guy like Shea, for example, and having obviously a guy like Chet, I don't see this as a down really for the Thunder. I mean, losing Giddy is something that needs to be seen if that offensive gap is going to be filled. But I mean, just the pro of having a guy like Caruso on your team, I think it's as a fan. You look. You mentioned this earlier. Like when you look at the stats of Cat, right? You say, "Oh my God, we're getting a guy like Cat on our team. This is amazing. Look at how beautiful this is." When you look at Caruso's stats, you're like, "Oh, I don't know if we want a guy like this on our team." Like it's we're talking two opposite ends of the spectrum. But the thing is, when you watch someone like this play, you understand that their value is infinitely beyond what you see in the stat book in the box score. So having someone like that on any team, especially a young team like the Thunder, who are progressively getting better, I only see that as a pro for them. So I'm really excited to see how that goes as a Bulls fan to see him thrive in that new environment.
That's kind of the state of the Bulls fan. How you get guys and then you see them thrive elsewhere. It's the life of a Jerry Reinsdorf led franchise.
Yep, it sucks, dude. Thank God I'm not a White Sox fan.
If
Thank
only, if
God.
only. And the worst
Go
team ever.
Cubbies, baby. Go Cubbies.
Yep, yep. Thunder, they're the second favorite. They have the second best odds for the NBA title, on courtesy of our friends at FanDuel.
Sure.
Plus 700 for them to win the title. They're the second favorite behind this. Boston's plus 320. Thunder plus 700. And I think that's right. I think that's kind of right. Denver, I don't think did anything that
Who is
makes me
rated
think
number
they're
three right now, or who's at the third spot?
the third spot are your New York Knickerbockers with Karl Anthony Towns. They have jumped since the Cat acquisition.
Please. Yeah, I know you and I both don't buy that.
Yeah, I definitely not the title. I think so. Here's what I say. The only thing I'll say with the Knicks is I don't hate like wins. Like I'll pull up their wins real quick, but I'm gonna say this, and I might be tipping my hat here for like a pick. This isn't a pick yet, but it might be. The New York Knicks are winning the in-season tournament. I'm telling you that right now.
Oh
The
boy.
Tom Thibodeau led New York Knickerbockers are winning the in-season tournament. Nothing screams Tom Thibodeau, Karl Anthony Towns, and the New York Knicks like winning the in-season tournament. Like they're gonna win that. Everyone's gonna lose their freaking minds, and then they're gonna win. I could see them winning a bunch of regular season games too. And
Hmm.
then it's gonna come. They're gonna get to the second round. They're gonna play Miami. They're gonna play Orlando. They're gonna play some team, and they're gonna get beat the f up because
Yep.
or Towns is just, or Tibbs is going to have a mental breakdown and bench Towns. Something's going to happen.
Yep.
But I'll just say that early pick potentially. Look at those Knicks odds for the. It's called the NBA Cup now. Did you know that, Mickey? They're plus 950 right now to win the NBA Cup. So I don't hate that. That's pretty good odds right there.
Yeah, the last team that won it last year didn't go too far in the playoffs, so I think that may be slightly telling.
But one who lost they had a nice little run. The Pacers, Andrew Nemhart and Dem Boys, they made a nice little run.
Touche, 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 touche.
But yeah, I think needless to say, we both like the Thunder. I think we got some time left. I think we should look ahead. We don't need to I don't want to take this too long. We got a lot of time for off season talk, and we got a long season ahead. But we both decided pre this pod to look at some storylines. Think about the landscape of the NBA. Look ahead. Think about things we like, whether player or team related. Mickey Swiss, you want to start us off? What's a storyline that piqued your interest looking ahead?
Sure. I'll be the one to bring it up. I think one of the most obvious ones that any and every NBA fan is thinking this to some capacity. Now it may be one, two, or three on their rankings, but every NBA fan is looking forward to this storyline, and it's a big one because there's so many small facets within it. The Los Angeles Lakers. What is going on with the
Oh,
Los Angeles Lakers? Right? You have the big move of JJ Redick, this savant podcaster, now the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, who forget Bronny James for a second. That in itself, Old Man in a Three being an incredible, very successful podcast, JJ being super successful on ESPN, then him coming up with Mind the Game with LeBron, who, by the way, happens to be a star player now. So just JJ going there alone, I think, is a huge, huge thing. He's got no NBA experience as a coach, and all of a sudden he's the coach of the Lakers, one of the biggest teams, one of the biggest markets. That can only go as Los Angeles things go, incredible or an absolute dumpster fire. And I think everybody's looking forward to see how it goes. I think JJ's a savant. I respect him a ton. I'm a huge fan of his, but there are a ton of eyes on him and a ton of pressure on him. With the second prong of that, you have Bronny James, the Los Angeles Lakers now, the son of LeBron, the son of the king, the heir to the throne. Now,
are they
next
related?
to they might be
Okay,
Bronny. I hear
okay,
that they are. I'm super excited to see how that goes. Not a huge Lakers fan, but just the fact that Bron and Bronny are on the same team. I mean, what is that dynamic? People have been joking. It's like, hey, is Bronny calling LeBron dad on the court? All this stuff, which I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. Having this young phenom that everyone's been watching high school mixtapes of, and his lackluster career at USC, and all of a sudden he gets picked up by the Los Angeles Lakers, and now he's on the team with his dad. So I think this is all the makings of a Hollywood story. I think it's fitting that in all teams, in all markets, it is in Los Angeles. So I'm looking forward to see how that goes. This incredible relationship between Bron and Bronny, and of course, this well-respected analyst, commentator, and podcaster, and JJ Redick as the head coach.
I love hate watching the Lakers. As a Celtics fan, I'm very excited to see this dumpster fire of a
Yeah.
situation. I don't hate. I think JJ Redick could very well be a good coach. I think an interesting subplot of last season was watching JJ Redick publicly interview for Darvin Ham's job with LeBron
Yep.
on that
Yeah.
podcast. That was very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, I think it's just when the buzz around your team is like, what is Bronny going to call LeBron, and not like, what do you guys think about the landscape of the West and your
Yeah.
position in it? I think that kind of tells you. It's giving like Kobe's last few seasons. That's how I feel about it. I think LeBron. I'm curious to see how this goes. I'm curious to see how much LeBron or how much Bronny plays. They're going to give him that one game at least where like they do the thing, and
Mm-hmm.
then he'll probably spend the rest of his time with the South Bay Lakers in the G League. I think there's a world in which he's like really bad. Um, but I'm not rooting against the kid. I think um, like the nepotism conversation I think is stupid. Like this happens all the time in sports. Like who cares? It's if there's any player in the NBA that's going to get their son drafted, it's going to be LeBron. Get over it. Like who cares? I
Sure.
just don't
Definitely.
like. I don't like listening to them pretend like it's anything but that though. Like JJ Redick, like doth protest too much with the Bronny. Like like oh he deserves to be here. He earned it. Like what I
Yeah.
mean. He's a 6 foot shooting guard quotes around the shooting who like allegedly plays defense and averaged 3 points a game at USC,
Mm-hmm.
who didn't make the NCAA tournament. So like, I'm not saying that projects don't work out, but I'd be curious. I think if anything, it'd be better for Bronny to be elsewhere away from LeBron, so there's just less pressure. Like let him go to Portland and just kind of be bad for a while and develop, and then just like try and carve out a lane for himself. I think when he's just right next to LeBron, serves no one to, in my opinion, other than LeBron and his
Mm-hmm.
legacy. Which like whatever, it's his son, he can do what he wants. Um, I think it's so fascinating because LeBron played so well in the Olympics. Like he looked amazing, and he was the best player on that team. Other than those last 2 games, it was Steph as the closer, but LeBron was the engine of that team at 40 with
Without question.
Steph. Like you know what I mean? Like so clearly he can still do it. The question is, can he do it for 82 games and then 4 rounds in the playoffs against these young kids? Probably not. Anthony Davis, I think, had his best year maybe of his career last year. One of like at least one of his best careers as a Laker,
Definitely.
or best seasons as a Laker. Um, so I think they have pieces, but then it's like it's it's not long before you get to Austin Reeves as like the next best dude. Our very kind and generous leader, Orb Wizard, who runs this company. Shout out to the Orb.
Out to the org.
He asked me the question. I think at the beginning of last year, when everyone was picking the Lakers to have a good year, he was like, "Are we sure Austin Reeves can be your third best player, and like, you be a real threat?" And I said, like, maybe when LeBron and AD are your next two, but I just think they run out if they don't have enough. So I'm curious to see. I think they'll maybe they make a move. Maybe they go get your boy Zach Levine. I don't know if that does anything for him though. Because that would be a very Lakers move too. Like to
Oh
just go
yeah.
get a name of a dude who could like is something.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. We're going to be talking about him all the time,
Yeah.
and we're just going to see LeBron. Every point he scores is a record, and he's just kind of. It's amazing to watch him play. Um, but yeah, I'm just as a Celtics fan, I'm rooting against this for sure, and I think I'm going to be right.
One final thing before we move on to storyline number two. I think one of the more interesting things about that, which you touched on, is how LeBron played in the Olympics and how well he played and how he truly was the engine of the team. And he recently said, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but he said he's got a lot left in the tank. What the Olympics taught him is that he said he feels that he could just be saying this. It could be some BS preseason hype. It is what it is. You could take it for what do you think it's worth, maybe with a little grain of salt or 2 or 6. But he thinks he's got a lot left in the tank. And to be fair, I think the Olympics did kind of prove it does seem like he has some over the course of an 82 game NBA season. Certainly not the same as the Olympics, but hey, if he performs anything like that for I don't know 60% of the games, I think the Lakers might be in decent shape.
Yeah, and I think it's in their best interest because it's interesting because LeBron basically didn't have an off season. It's normally in their best interest for him to kind of slowly ramp up and be at peak shape for the playoffs.
Yes.
So I don't know. Like I'm worried about him potentially burning out. But if they can get him to May or not May even, get him to April, um, I like their chances. They're over under for wins 42 and a half. They won 47 last year. So do you think they're better, the same? I think some of the West is better. That seems
That's their
like it
biggest
seems a little
problem.
high.
It's the West. Yeah,
Seems a
it,
little high for me.
yeah, that's fair.
And 47 wins was an 8 seed.
Sure.
So it's tough. They're in a tough spot. All right. So you had the Lakers. I appreciate you. I opened the pod with the Celtics. You can open this segment with the Lakers. I guess I'll allow that.
I had to get you on that as a
Yeah.
non Celtics and non Lakers fan. I had to check you. just
Listen,
a
we
little.
talk about the Celtics because of substance. We talk about the Lakers because of drama. Also, I'm going to say this, and then we'll move on. All you Laker fans, I lived in Los Angeles, the great Los Angeles area, for like 6 years. You guys do not have 17 titles. You have 12. The Los Angeles Lakers have 12 titles. 5 of them were in Minneapolis. Okay? So you guys
Ooh.
come. This wasn't a tiebreaker. We have 6 more titles than you. The Boston Celtics have 18 championships. The Los Angeles Lakers have 12. George Mikan won you 5 when there was no 3-point line and the paint was like an inch long and they had to change the rule because he was the only 7-footer. So don't come at me. If you go to Mickey, if you go to Staples Center,
Mm-hmm.
crypto.com arena now,
Mm-hmm.
look up. Next time you're there, anyone listening to this, look up. You'll see all the Los Angeles Lakers banners one by one. You know where you'll see the Minneapolis banners? You'll see them on one little flag against the wall, bunched up together. So if they don't even count them as separate, why should we? That's all I'm going to say. I
I
didn't want to
appreciate
get
you
I
mentioning
didn't
that.
want
I'm
to
gonna
get
take a look at that.
aggressive. I had to get that out. I'm sorry. Now that I have a platform to get this out, I had to get it out.
No, please, please. We've already established ourselves as cat haters. We can hate anything we want here on this sort of platform. So please, this is you and I, our game. We can play this back and forth as long as we need. Get it out. This
Thank
is
you.
event
Thank,
sesh.
thank you. Thank you. Um, my storyline.
Let's hear it.
This is player first, but it goes into this, and we talked about one of their players, Kevin Durant. Are you just gonna like fizzle out and just like have the worst end to a career of like an all time great ever? Is that what you're just gonna do? That you're gonna do like you're gonna go to Golden State, win your 2 titles with Steph. You're gonna join a 73 win team, win your 2 titles, and you're gonna leave and just maybe have like the grossest career ever. Like I am very curious because I still think he can do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I've seen enough from Booker. I don't care about Beal. Beal's fine, whatever.
Agreed.
I think him and Booker can make enough noise to like show me something. Like they shouldn't be getting dog walked by Anthony Edwards. Like who are you? Like what do you want this to be? Because right now I have a lot more recent memories of you just getting bounced in the playoffs by dudes you're supposed to be better than
Mm-hmm.
since you won a title with Steph Curry. Like I want to see them be good. They got Budenholzer as the coach. I think they can win a lot of regular season games. I think they can get a good seed. They don't have a ton of depth because their new owner was just throwing cash around like crazy for 3 guys. Um, I want to see it again. I think he can still do it. And I think Devin Booker, even if that means he's not the best guy, even if that means that Booker's their best guy, I think he has it in him. It's just a matter of if we're ever going to see it again. Because if say the next few seasons, how old is he? Like 34, 35, something like that? If the next
That's
few
fair.
seasons go like this, Ari podcast, why don't you look up how old Kevin Durant is for us? We have our producer, our friendly producer here, can find out ages and
36.
facts.
Nailed it.
36. Thank you, Ari. 36. You can mute your mic now. Please stop talking. Um, I think that I think they can do it, but if the next few seasons go like this, like what's his legacy? It's a really talented guy who made some weird decisions and hitched his wagon to some weird people, and he maybe was like a toenail away from beating that Bucks team that maybe they could have won a title, but I think that shouldn't have been their only chance the last few years. I'm curious your thoughts on Mr. Durant.
I think that you are spot on here, and I'm really glad that you brought this up because I genuinely thought about this, and this is on my list. I wanted to start with a very obvious thing with the Lakers, but the idea, the legacy of Kevin Durant going into the season, I definitely think is an interesting storyline. So good on you for bringing this up. I think this is like a deep, nuanced perspective. I don't think it's as obvious as like major trades, as something like, hey, what's Philadelphia going to do, and the headline stuff of what we talked about with the Lakers. Because I think you make some excellent points, and I think you worded it well with Kevin Durant hitching his name, hitching his talent, hitching his career to various teams, various players, and making some. I also agree some questionable decisions. I also think Kevin Durant absolutely still has it. I think he's a freak. I think he is arguably the best scorer that has ever walked the planet. Just overall pure bucket. I definitely think he still has it. We saw it last year. We saw it in the Olympics. Again, the Olympics aren't the same. Yeah. I get it. But when you can get a bucket, you can get a bucket, and Kevin Durant still can. And is it possible that we see this incredible talent fizzle in Phoenix, being number one, 1A, number two to Devin Booker? Is there some other move that's going to happen in the future? They should get it done. Anthony Edwards said multiple times leading up to the series, during the series, and after the series how much he appreciates, respects, and admires and looks up to Kevin Durant. Multiple times he said that. He said that during the Olympics and just in media day. He was asked, "Hey, Anthony Edwards, you had this beautiful opportunity of participating in the Olympics. You got to play with Steph and LeBron." And then the guy continued the conversation, continued the question. And Ed Edwards chimed in. He's like, "Don't forget KD." So he slipped in KD's there. So he's a huge fan of KD. But you're right. KD and the Suns should have beaten Anthony Edwards and the Wolves, and they didn't. So this talent that we see, this incredible career, I do think it's taken notch after notch after notch, and it's going down just a little bit after a little bit after a little bit after this these questionable decisions that he's made and the petering out of what was an incredible high of what was the Golden State Warriors. But I do think he's got to turn around. He's got to do something. I don't know what it is, but he does have to make a name for himself, I think, in this upcoming season to kind of remind everybody, hey, I still am the Slim Reaper.
Yes, 100%. And we opened the pod. I think there's three guys that define the last decade and a half of the NBA, and
Yes.
he's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other two are still relevant. And the other two have still had moments. The Olympics were Durant's first moment since that Bucks series where his toe was on the line. And he doesn't need to win a title. It's hard to win a title, especially when he's 35. It's not he doesn't need anything really to solidify his legacy. I don't want to see him go down like this. I'd like to see him in meaningful games again. And he has more talent, I'd argue, around him than LeBron or Steph does right now. Devin Booker, I mean Anthony Davis. I guess Devin Booker and Anthony Davis are two studs. But I want to see more, and I'm curious to see if we're going to get that. Their over under for the season is 47.5. Mm-hmm. They won 49 last year, and they were a 6 seed. They should be a good regular season team. I don't see why they shouldn't be.
I feel like they should definitely be winning a lot of regular season games. Based off of that and that alone, I think I would shade over on that. I suspect and predict them to be, like I said, regular season dependent going into the playoffs. I think they should be riding a good wave. I think they'll be pretty successful.
Yeah, they were 2 games behind the Clippers, and I think the Clippers are going to be worse. So I think certain teams will be better. I think we're at about an hour here, Mickey. I don't want to take up too much time. We got a lot to talk about before the season starts. I don't want to blow it all on one pod. We can kind of dole this out as the weeks go on. I think we got a lot more meat on the bone in terms of teams and storylines to talk about for the upcoming season. But I think we can kind of save it. This is our first pod, Mickey. I don't know if you checked, but we have a preseason basketball game on Friday, and my Celtics are a part of it.
It's crazy that it's already here, but this coming up, I do want to say one thing. I want to end with one more take, before we call it. And I actually don't want it to come from me, and I don't want it to come from you, Jesse, Mr. Vibe. You call on him real quick just to get up a number that we couldn't find real quick, the age of Mr. Kevin Durant, Mr. Slim Reaper. I'm going to call on Ari Podcast real quick right here. I have a question. You've seen it. You've seen it on the internet. We've all seen it. We've all watched it. It's time. We are currently in the cycle of the NBA offseason where Ben Simmons, Mr. Ben Simmons, is at the forefront with his highlight reel at the gym in New York has been posted. It is him getting shots up, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Ben Simmons, it's time. It's that part of the offseason. He's in the lab. He's cooking. He's healthy. He's ready to go. He wants the ball. He's going to be great this year.
He's taking jump shots.
He's taking jump shots. For once, he's taking them and he's making them. He's got pressure and he's making them. So we as NBA fans are subjected to this again for the 4th time in sequential years. And you, Mr. Ari Pod, we need to hear your opinion as a fan. Please explain to us your thoughts on what is and what will be Ben Simmons.
Thanks for that. I can't believe my first take on this pod is going to be this, but here we go.
As he should be.
As it should be. I saw two articles about Ben Simmons the last couple days. One is from Sports Illustrated, so take it with a grain of salt. Ben Simmons explained why he's, quote, not that bad at basketball. And
Oh.
another from CBS Sports
Yikes.
is Ben Simmons says, quote, people forget how good he is. I am not people. I remember. I just absolutely refuse to believe that this 6'10 athletic freak is not going to break out, and maybe he just needs the 9-year bump. I never sold my Sam Darnold stock. I continuously buy Baker Mayfield stock. I recognize it's a totally different sport. I think Ben Simmons is going to show up. This is the year.
Okay, all right, turn off your microphone.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ari, for that. I didn't want your one chime in here on the pod just to be a quick chime in regarding the age of Kevin Durant. So I needed that.
That would have sufficed.
It could have. It would have. But as first pod, I mean, the fans need it. I know we needed it, and I know Ari needed it too. So thank you, Ari, for once again being slightly clouded as a Ben Simmons fan, having high expectations. But I know I do, and I think Jesse does as well. Appreciate the fandom and the conviction behind your support for Mr. Ben Simmons.
Somebody has to support him. If he won't support himself, I will. Also,
Ari, I said turn off your mic.
Kevin Durant's birthday was 2 days ago. Happy birthday, Kevin Durant.
Oh,
happy birthday, KD.
Happy birthday, Kevin Durant. All right, turn off your microphone, please. Mickey, last question. Just be honest with me.
Please.
Salaries aside, you're starting a team, and you got a choice of two guys. You get Ben Simmons, or you get Bronny James. Who do you want? Today.
Ari, me and you, man. Let's take Ben Simmons together. Let's take Ben Simmons together, brother. Took me a second. I had to snap myself out of it.
Bump.
All right, we talked about your microphone. Please turn that off.
I'll take Ben Simmons. But
you had to think about it.
I had to think about it. Am I going to regret that pick in a week in the preseason, a week into the regular season? It's very possible. Am I going to beat my head against the wall and get stuck back in the loop of, oh my God, he's out and we're waiting for the next cycle to come out? It's very possible. At least if I have Bronny James, I have the LeBron James connection, I have the Los Angeles connection, I got all the hype and all the hype and all the hype and all the hype that comes with Bronny James. I don't know, man. But I'll take Ben Simmons.
It's it should be the right decision over a 6-foot shooting guard who can't shoot. This should be the right decision. I'm taking Bronny. This would be a fun thing to track as the season goes on. The Ben Simmons versus Bronny tracker. Who plays more games in the NBA? That's what I want to see. So we can kind of keep track of that as we go. Ari, when we allow you to turn your mic on, I want to figure out a way to remove controls from him to unmute himself. I want to be able to unmute him and mute him. We'll figure that out. Mickey, I think we're an hour and 11 for the first pod is pretty good. I think we're good to wrap. I think appreciate you. Thank you to the Orb Ari podcast. Don't unmute, but thank you, Mickey. I think we're doing it. I think we'll make this a weekly thing, and then as we get closer to the season, I don't have any official picks for you guys today, other than, and again, this is not an official pick, but I really like Knicks for the NBA in-season tournament, but we'll touch on that a little later. But Mickey, thank you. Any final words to say to the people before we jump?
I just want to say I think this was a really fun first episode. I know that obviously this is just kind of scraping the surface. We have so many more things to talk about, and just in terms of leading up to the season before things actually get going. But so far so good. I'm really glad that we got this off the ground. Ari, thank you for being here. Jesse, always great talking to you, and I think this is a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this again sometime soon. Thank you all for listening too, by the way.